today is baking day, so my sourdough sat all night. It's ready to go. And actually, you know, I feed it, and sometimes I feel like I really even use more than what I need because, I mean, not on purpose. I mean, the goal is not to throw away a lot of flour, right? So I have a lot of starter here, and I don't actually need all of this. I'm only going to need about, oops, sorry, get my scale ready. I'm probably just going to use about 150, no, excuse me, 200 grams. That's usually what I start with. So actually this will be just about right. And then sometimes if I feel like, oh, I'm not gonna have enough left, I just use a little less. It's okay. This part is very forgiving, how much starter you start with. That's that part I was talking about where it just affects the flavor a little bit. It's here, like how much I put in my bread. That's about 188. Just a touch more here. And I should still have enough left to feed and save. Okay. That's a little bit high. It's a little bit high, but for video purposes, I put like 228. I'm just gonna leave it because it'll be fine. I don't want to sit here and try and scrape it out. Sometimes I'll try to get closer to 200, but in the end, it's fine. So what you see here is I have a little bit of starter left. I kind of just push that all down so I don't get little dry bits. And then later, I'm gonna go back and feed that. Now, you've seen me just previously. I've got all kinds of half-fed jars sitting around here. I might just, if I had other, get rid of that. But normally this would be my main jar and I would have some backup in the refrigerator. So I would save this and I would feed this and this would be my maintenance. So that's that idea of you want to leave back just a little bit of starter to feed. Now, if you remember when I was showing you on that other video, this is like very sticky and okay, so just kind of push it all together. I'll put the lid back on there and set that aside for now, but later after I have my dough mixed up, my process would be to feed that. If you remember on the other video, I showed you that I was drawing from like a big jar that I had a bunch in, and I only took about 50 grams to do my maintenance feed. If you wanted to share your starter, that's what you would share. So I'm maintenance feeding, I took 50 grams out, I'm feeding it, I'm gonna save that for when I bake. If I had extra, that's what I would share. Or if I want to share like this, I would feed it just a little bit more, still keeping that 1-to-2 ratio of water to flour. And then I would make a little extra so that I could make my bread, have some starter to feed, and then have maybe 50 grams to take out and feed and give to someone else. Hopefully that makes sense. So it's just about making sure you have some starter to keep and then you can give some away, and then do you have enough for your bread? Again, I'm gonna make a doc so you'll have all these numbers in there. Okay, so I've got my starter in there. This is gonna look very familiar. It's just like mixing up starter, really, but now I'm just adding more because I'm gonna bake, and I'm gonna add one more thing. I'm gonna add salt. So I'm getting ready to make bread. I usually try to make, there's a couple things. Let's talk about a couple things here. You can use bread flour. Bread flour can hold more water in its dough because of the protein content. I mean, I don't know why, but because of its high protein, it can hold more water in the dough, and you can make a more hydrated dough. I don't use bread flour. I just use all-purpose. I use all-purpose flour, and I like it because it's Costco sells it. It's organic. I really, really prefer to use organic flour, and they have like King Arthur there, but they don't have any organic King Arthur bread flour. I don't even know if I can afford that. Actually, it might be really expensive. So when you see a recipe for sourdough, you need to see if it's using bread flour. Sorry, child interruption there. So let me pick up with that. When you follow a recipe, look to see if it is using bread flour or all-purpose flour, because the amount of water, like you can't just take someone's recipe for sourdough that uses bread flour and substitute all-purpose flour without making a slight adjustment for your water, because it just, that recipe will, whatever that amount of water will be, it will be too much for your all-purpose flour. I'm using all-purpose flour, and the recipe I'm giving you will work for it will work for this Costco all-purpose flour. I'm pretty sure that Costco all-purpose flour is pretty high protein level for all-purpose flour. I'd have to look at the bag and tell you what it is. It's like around 11.9 or something like that. So this is just something to keep in mind. It's something I've just learned recently. Like I did try a new recipe and I was like, this is a mess. Like my dough is like almost like pancake batter. Like I could barely pick it up and do anything with it. It was a mess. And then I just started learning more about that and realized, like, why did I not just stick with the recipe I make that worked with my flour? Like, if you find something that works, I would just stick with it. So, okay. let's go back to our recipe. We've got our starter sitting in here, and I'm going to feed this. I go for about 75% hydration, and so I'm going to put 750 grams of water, and I'm going to put 1,000 grams of flour. And that makes 2 loaves, in case you're wondering. There's a lot of flour. I'm hoping I have enough flour in there. I forgot to, oops, put the scale on before we start pouring. Waiting for my scale to get, so I try to just break up this stiff starter. This is the difference between a liquid starter and a stiff starter. If I had a liquid starter in here, it would just kind of mix in with the water real easily. You don't even have to do a lot of this, but I think it kind of helps just to break it up into pieces so I don't have this big chunk here when I go to mix it. Okay, and then I add about 20 grams of salt. You can adjust that. I like my bread to have a little bit of it. Like if you forget your salt, you will know. It's the strangest tasting thing. It's still edible, but it's weird. I just make croutons with it. Your family will be like, what did you do to the bread? So I'm gonna tear my scale here. About 20 grams. You can use a little more, you could use a little less to taste. Now, at this point, you will see some recipes where they talk about before you add the salt that you autolyze your flour. So if you come across that terminology, I don't use that step. So if you're wondering, like, Jennifer did not talk about that, she did not autolyze her flour. I don't. It's kind of to just break down the grain a little bit, and you're basically just soaking your starter and your flour and water and not the salt. You add the salt afterwards if you do an autolyze. But I don't know, sometimes I find when I do it, it just breaks it down too much if I'm using white flour. The autolyze is probably better for, like, if you're using whole grains that need a little more breaking down. It makes them a little bit softer and easier texture-wise with your bread. But white flour, it doesn't really need to break down so much. So I have done it, but I don't see, either my dough gets too, like, almost like gum that you've chewed too long. Have you ever had that experience where it just, like, falls apart in your mouth? I feel like that's how my dough gets sometimes if I autolyze it. So I don't. That is my, again, not very scientific take on it. I know other people who don't when I've been on different sourdough groups. So if you see that word and you're wondering where that fits in here and why you haven't seen it, that's why. Okay, so I have my water and my salt. And now I'm going to add, I'm going to hit the tare button, and I'm going to put my, so here, 1,000 grams of flour. You can definitely experiment and put some whole wheat flour. My family is so picky, and I'll tell you what, if I want my bread to last longer, like so I can eat it every morning for toast before I get more bread made, I add a little whole wheat to it. But they always complain. They really like white bread. I don't feel as bad about giving them white bread that's sourdough, because there's things in there that are good for them that there wouldn't be if it was just, you know, like white flour from the grocery store. However, there's lots of good things in whole wheat. Some of my kids will eat it. Sometimes I make it. It's not as sad as, it doesn't rise as much. Whole wheat flour is just a lot harder to work with. I would recommend getting a good loaf down with white flour if you're just starting out to baking sourdough, and then just a couple extra grams of flour. I like I was still off on my water measurement. Master white bread, and then if you get really good at that, then start experimenting, because then you know what it should do, and if it doesn't do that, then you know what's normal, and then you know when your bread's not coming out the way you would expect. It's still not going to rise as much. Whole wheat flour is just so much denser, but you could cut half whole wheat and half white and try different variations of whole grains. There's, you know, there's rye, there's barley, there's spelt, there's just whole red wheat. There's a whole bunch of different wheats out there. So you can experiment that, but just master something, get that straight, and then experiment. So I'm going to start mixing this, but I'm going to pause my video and I'm going to put this on time lapse because it's a little. Okay, now we've gotten to the most fun part of baking day and the loudest part. This part is called slap and fold, and it is actually a really good thing to do and not leave out, but I've only also learned this recently. This is just something I've added, but I've gotten such a better crumb, that's what you call it, when you look at your bread and cut it open and you look at like where the air bubbles are at and how it looks and its density. It's come out so much nicer since I started doing slap and fold, and it's actually kind of fun, and it probably worked your arm muscles a bit. So I'm going to pause this and move the camera, and we're going to start slapping and folding. But I also want to show you, when you mix up your dough, you just want to work in all the moisture. It's going to be kind of wet. It's not like a ball that's real easy to pick up and hold, kind of like when we fed that starter and I could just kind of do that in my hand. This is more dough. It's if I pick it up, it's gonna like start falling. So that's okay. That's how it's supposed to be. This is probably the part where when you start slapping and folding and you're messing with your dough and you're like, it's not right, I've messed up. Probably you haven't, so hang tight. Okay, the whole point of slap and fold, this process, is to kind of just begin to build the gluten structure. Actually, a lot of the gluten gets kind of like eaten up and broken down, which is why some people who are like sensitive to gluten, not celiac, then it makes no difference. You just can't have any gluten. There is still gluten in sourdough, but a lot of it's broken down. So people who are just sensitive to gluten can often eat sourdough. I am not a medical doctor or giving medical advice, just something that people have found that, again, if they just have a sensitivity, sometimes sourdough is much more digestible. So there is still gluten in sourdough. I've got two tools here I'm using. I've got my like scraper here and then my bowl scraper from Pampered Chefs, two really nice tools. Just get a clean counter space. I'm gonna show you here. I'm gonna move the camera so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just gonna kind of scrape out this mess. You don't have to put any flour or anything on the counter. It's gonna stick a little. It'll be a little messy when you're done. It's okay, I promise. And I'm gonna scrape out everything out of my bowl here that I can. Just trying to get all the little bits, not waste any of my dough. Okay. Pieces I can get. Okay. And now I'll use my dough scraper occasionally in this process, but I'm gonna show you slow and then I'm gonna do it fast on the because it does take a while. You do it for 5 minutes. What I'm gonna do is kind of just grab my dough and slap it down. My hands are going to get sticky. It's okay. Slap it down, pick it up and turn it. So I'm picking it up and turning it and slapping it down. It kind of helps if you keep going fast. If you've ever made oobleck, it kind of reminds me of that. When you slow down, it like sticks to you more. My husband works from home and he always, well, now he knows, but the first time I was doing this, he was like, kids, stop pounding. What are you doing? And you'll see, even after a short while of doing this, how the dough is already starting to kind of form together a little bit better than it was. So you might even be out of breath here when you're done. I did 3 loaves the other day and I was tired when I was done. But you can see where it's kind of fun. Sometimes my cabinets end up with dough all over them. It gets a little wild. And the longer you go, it gets, I'd say, even a little harder because the dough is coming together and isn't as floppy. So let's get this on time lapse. I like seriously am out of breath after doing that for 5 minutes. My husband always likes like, are you out of breath? I'm like, I'm gonna have like forearms like Popeye if I keep baking bread. Okay, so now my dough is, the gluten has formed a little bit more and I'm going to put it, I actually order a lot of these kind of like restaurant and supply, not Pampered Chef. I wish they made them, that'd be great, but they're really great for dough because you can pay closer attention to how much it's risen. So let me make it so you can see this. And also I want to tell you, and so it's sticky. It's going to be less sticky later, but right now, this is when a scraper is nice. If I just tried to pick this up from my counter, like you can see, it just would stick and be very messy and awful. So this kind of tool is super great. I could pick this up, I'm just talking. When you first do these slap and folds, the first time I did it, I was like, well, my dough was too hydrated. That was part of it, so it was just a sloppy mess. The second time I did, I'm like, oh, I guess that worked. I don't know. The more you do it, you get better at it. You get a better idea of how the dough should feel. You get better at making your dough. It has a good texture, and you just gotta get a feel for it and a rhythm. I've gotten much better at it, even just in a short time of doing it. So don't be discouraged the first time you do it if it doesn't feel right. I constantly am like, I don't think this is right, but now I've done it enough. I feel like it's right. I don't feel that feeling anymore. But it will be sticky still when you're done. And the more you do it, like you'll be tired by the end of that 5 minutes. Your arms will be tired and you'll slow down and you'll feel it sticking to you more. So try to just pick it up, slap it, fold it over. Pick it up, slap it, fold it over, and just try to keep moving. Okay, so in there just because camera on there. I just kind of scrape everything, try to loosen the sides, and then just in one fell swoop, pick it all up, plop it in. And then I've got a little on my counter, so I'm gonna add that in there too. Okay, and I am gonna use my dough scraper to kind of push all that. I like to keep it all together and not have stragglers because they might get dried out. Normally that's not that much of a problem. It's partially just because I took it back out and back in. Okay, we're gonna put a lid on this. I'm gonna let it sit. I may put the warmer on it because it's cooler in my kitchen. It doesn't have to be. It's not really rising right now. It's just kind of resting. And we're gonna do something called stretch and fold. We're not gonna slap it anymore, but we are gonna stretch it and fold it over. And so I will show you that next. That'll probably be next day. This is kind of like end of first step. I fed it last night. This morning I added my water, flour, and salt, just to recap, to get it ready to bake. So now I have like my actual big batch of dough to bake, and then I slapped and folded it, and now it's ready to rest for a bit. So I'm gonna wait about a half hour, and then I'm gonna start something called stretch and fold, and that'll be the next installment.